We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Hopefully, your day is going well. As I've told folks, I'm on the road this week. So, this show is going to air Friday, which just happens to be July 4th, which is a big holiday in the United States. Of course, we got a lot of shit looming over our heads, and you have to wonder whether you're proud of being in the United States at this point based on some of the things happening. But we have a special guest on, a guest that's been on the lives and been on this podcast, but it's been a while. His name is John, and on TikTok he goes as JD Farmer. It's because he's not only a young guy, as you can see if you're watching the video version of this, he is Gen Z, but he's also a farmer. So I'm guessing things been a little busy on the farm this spring into summer, huh?
Yeah, a little bit, a little bit. Been hauling corn into the town here lately. It's been a busy time.
With all the tariffs and bullshit, I always ask you about the farming situation. Now you're in the Midwest, so farming is pretty common. With all the ups and downs with tariffs and all this bullshit, have you noticed anything different about your business, your job?
Well, I mean, the grain market is not good. It's like
I mean, the
usually
prices are
it'll
low.
go, yeah, real low. Yeah. It the market really likes stability, as any market would,
Yeah.
and we don't have much stability to go around. So
Well,
it's hard to know what to do.
what tariffs are on? Are those specifically having an impact on everything? Or I mean, because it's July 4th when you listen to the show, but we know this 90-day pause ends on the 9th. So it's imminent. We don't know what's going to happen at that point, and it could
Yeah.
get even worse at that point.
Oh, it very well could. Yeah, and that's we we sold all this corn for we had a contractor for sale in July, and so we have our price already locked in. But I mean, I feel really bad for the guys that are doing had contracts with USAID, and now they're just gone. So
So
really, we have it a lot better.
what happens with a farmer that was normally selling to U.S. aid, and now, of course, that's shut off? They have a lot of product. What do they do with it? Is there anything they can do with it? Because I know the market is limited in this
Yeah,
country. There's a lot of people selling corn or whatever else they're selling, and they're going to bring down the price, and it's going to be harder to sell because there's too much product.
yeah, yeah, and that's the main thing is like you could probably sell that stuff, but the market's going to be flooded, and you're not going to get nearly as much as you were getting from the government. But
But since it's perishable, what choice do you have?
well, exactly, and that's just it. Um, a lot of what I, from my understanding, is a lot of what the concern is right now is over stuff that was already contracted ahead of time, like through basis contracts and stuff. So they signed those contracts like last December or before Trump was in office. They signed contracts to be sold this year sometime. And so the government's breaking all those contracts. And when they signed some of those things, they hadn't even had the crop in the ground yet, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, and people will say, well, it's illegal, and they'll push Donald Trump back, but that doesn't, we've got products, we've got produce that's going to rot. Uh, you either make some money, either you make normal money, you make a little money, or you make nothing, and those are really
Right.
the only three options you have, right?
Yeah. I mean, like last year, for example, the markets were pretty bad. Um, so like we could still sell everything, but we didn't make money. We were doing good to break even. And so some years are like that. Some years you make money and some years you don't. But we've had a string of years now where it's been pretty tight.
Are you, as a young man, you've got options, you're Gen Z, have you ever rethought your professional future in terms of farming? I know you love to do it,
Yeah.
but if there's no way to make money in it, you gotta look at some options, right?
Right. Yeah. And that's something I've been thinking about here lately is I had an opportunity to get um to potentially rent a couple hundred acres to farm here, um, that came up for available last year, and boy, I'm glad I didn't take advantage of that now.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's one thing
But
if you've been a farmer for 20, 30 years and you've gone through some things and done some things, but if you're just starting out and you get hit hard the first time, it's hard to even
oh
foresee
yeah,
a future.
yeah, yeah. I mean, for guys that have been farming for 20, 30 years, like you say, I mean, their business is already set, the equipment's paid for, and
Right,
they know how to plan for it. Whereas if a guy like me is just starting out, I'm running everything on equipment loans and
right.
operating notes. I really don't have any room for error there.
What do you see the future? Can you get any sense of what's going to happen over the next year or so with farming? I mean, none of it looks positive based on the back and forth with Donald Trump and the tariffs.
Yeah, it looks pretty rough. Um, Honestly, the best we can hope for is just maybe Trump will give up or something. Get I'm hoping China will kick his ass enough that he'll get bored messing with them and go pick on someone else like an narcissist usually does.
Yeah, true. Well, let me ask you this. You see all the things going on. As I've told people, we're getting ahead on these podcasts because I'm going to be on the road and it's hard to record podcasts on the road. So while this is airing on July 4th, um, we are recording it on the evening of July 1st. So there's a lot of things that have probably happened between when we're recording this and when they hear this that we may not even know. But one of the things that's going on right now is, as of today, the Republicans voted for the big beautiful bill, um, and it was really I wouldn't say it was surprising. It's not surprising. I am not surprised it went through, but it really showed the number of cowards in the Republican Party. There were three Republicans that voted against it: Rand Paul, Tom Tillis, and Susan, whatever the fuck her name is,
Collins.
Collins. Right? They voted against it. Lisa Murkowski said she was going to vote against it. Then all of a sudden she said, "No, I'm going to vote for it." And we later found out that the reason she was doing that is because the Republicans, knowing they needed her vote, said, "Listen, we're going to cut all the Medicaid in all the states, but we'll exempt your state, Alaska." So she said, "Oh, sure, I'll sign on to that," sacrificing the rest of the country for her own good. And then the parliamentarian said, "Now you can't do that." So then she had to shuffle around and try to get something out of it. So when she goes back to Alaska, she can try to sell them on something that she did right. But I don't know if you saw there was a she was walking around the Capitol after the vote, and a reporter came up to her and said, Senator Rand Paul said you pretty much hung out the rest of the country to dry so you could benefit you and your state. And the woman stopped and she stared at him for about 10, 15 seconds without saying a word, trying to do the mom stare or whatever. Wasn't working too well. It was working on him. He goes, "Well, I didn't say it. Rand Paul said it." And, I was thinking to myself, if I was a reporter in that situation, she's looking at this guy like, "How dare you?" And if it were me as a reporter, I would say, "How dare you, bitch? You just cut off health care to hundreds of thousands of people in your state. You have the nerve." But then she said, "I work very hard. I have to do what's best for the state." Yeah, go home to Alaska and sell that, sister, because it's not going to work. What were your thoughts about them passing this bill? It certainly wasn't a surprise.
I knew they would pass it in some way, shape, or form. Um, it I think they are not secure in their own power. And what
No.
I mean by that is people are throwing around the idea that we'll never vote again and the midterms will be canceled and blah blah blah. Well, here's my thinking on that. If they thought that they wouldn't be challenged in their power, they would have passed that bill in a week and
Yeah.
it would have been signed into law a long motherfucking time ago.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right about that. So on July 1st, where we're at right now, in spite of the fact that you're listening to it on July 4th, it's going to the House of Representatives. Now, this could go a couple of ways. This could go rubber stamp by the House of Representatives, which wouldn't make any sense, but they could rubber stamp it so they could make Donald Trump's deadline, which happens to be today, as you listen to this, July 4th. He wanted that on his desk by July 4th so he could sign it and be the fucking hero. That's what he wanted to do. Um, but there's some problems. Now, I recognize the fact that by the time you hear this, this might already been a done deal one way or another. But as we're sitting here today, it's supposed to go to the House, and I'm hearing there are at least 20 people on the Republican side that are not feeling good about this. And the problem is the House sent them something, and now the Senate is sending them something entirely different. And it's potential to have them change it. And then if they change it, it has to go back to the Senate and back and forth. This could take forever. I think that would be the best thing if it just got delayed back and forth fucking for infinity. But there's a good chance that by the time people hear this, they will have already signed it, and this horrible bill will be law. Uh, as a young man, and you see the things they're doing in this bill, what concerns you the most?
Well, I was thinking about this today, actually. If they sign this into law, I'm 24 now,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll be 26 in 2 years. So I'll be off my parents' insurance, and my job doesn't. I don't get insurance through my job.
Right.
You know, so and I don't know really any farmers that get their insurance through their farm job.
No, of
You
course
know,
not.
you get it through your spouse or you have a day job or something like that. So I'm sitting here thinking, am I going to be able to do this, or am I going to
Yeah,
have
you.
to find a job somewhere else doing something that I don't want to fucking do? You know,
Well, and that's
but
it. That's it. You got to think about your future. You got to think about your own security.
yeah,
And if you have no security, you're in the farming business, which is in flux, and then you get no kinds of benefits. You get no kind. You can't even afford the health insurance. I mean, what do you do but do something different?
yeah. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I make 40,000 a year, which I'm comfortable as it stands right now. But if I have to buy my own health insurance, I'm fucking broke. There's no way, you know.
Yeah, yeah,
But then so I was thinking about that today, and I don't know, it's in the back of my mind. But I am the least concerned about myself in this situation because there's a lot more people out there that are a lot worse off than I am.
oh yeah. I mean, you've got single moms. You've got people that don't make a lot of money. Uh, I get people coming every day worried about their Social Security or Medicare, and they're saying, "Listen, without Social Security, I have no money. I'll be homeless." And they're terrified of this whole situation, and it's a real issue. The whole healthcare thing. There might be some people out there that say, "Well, I get Medicare, so I'm not worried about this Medicaid thing. It's not hitting me yet." But what people have to understand, you live in kind of a rural community, right?
Yeah, I
I
do.
mean, it's a town, but it's rural essentially, hence the farm. But what people don't understand is if Medicaid stops, that means they are going to close up literally thousands of rural hospitals. So at 24, 25, you don't have to worry about a hospital nearby, but maybe your folks do, and maybe grandparents do. People who are older don't need to drive 2 hours to get to a fucking hospital. But that's exactly
Yeah,
what's going to happen. And that's how it will impact Medicare folks.
yeah, definitely. And it'll impact people, of all ages, car accidents and whatnot. And then also
Yeah.
on the farm, I mean, you're working around machinery a lot, and so accidents happen from time to time, unfortunately, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's the it's not just cruelty, it's malice. It's just
Yeah.
how how can anybody put their name on that and feel good about it?
Well, that's a
I
good
do not
point.
understand it.
Well, that's a good point because you've got a poll that shows 27, 28% support this bill. Only 27, 28%. If I'm a politician and expect to get reelected, why would I be all in on that fucking thing? That seems like a definite loser. And it's got to come down to the fear of Donald Trump. That's the only thing I could possibly
Yeah,
think of. And my question is, what are you afraid of?
exactly. I mean, he can't put a whole sentence together, and he shits his pants all day long. What are you
There you
afraid of?
go.
It's just like he's not a smart guy. You know, you'll piss him off now, and then he'll forget about it in 5 minutes and go look somewhere else. It's like,
Well, exactly.
you know,
Take a look at the
but
tariffs.
well, exactly, yeah. And so I was thinking about this today, and I'm thinking, you know, once they pass this bill, I think they wanted to pass this bill not just because of Trump. I think this they have been after Medicare and Medicaid, Social Security. They've been after all of that since at least the Johnson administration.
Yeah, no question.
So this bill is basically the wet dream of the GOP that they have. This is what they have always wanted since like Reagan. So
No,
I
you're
think they
probably
were
right.
I think this I call it the Hail Mary bill because I think this is kind of they I think they know that they're on the way out, that like the younger generations in general just aren't as conservative, and I think they know their time is running short if they want to get this stuff accomplished, and so they just put it all together in one big ass bill, and they just kick it and say, well, we'll see what happens, and then I think that's where we are right now.
I get the impression it's kind of like when you're kids and you have a brother or a sister and you're arguing with them and they walk in your bedroom, look at you, and then sweep everything off your dresser and walk out just to cause some kind of trauma or turmoil. That's
Yeah,
what that's what it seems like. Let me ask you this: in 2028, it's saying the large majority, the vast majority of the people that will be voting will be millennials and Gen Zs. That'll be a big switch because boomers and Gen X have really kind of dominated who's voting, and that would explain how some dumb fuck like Donald Trump ends up being president. Do you have enough confidence in people of your generation or generations to fix what's going on here?
uh, but before I wasn't really too sure about it because a lot of young men voted for Trump,
Right.
unfortunately. And why that is, I have no fucking idea. But look at what happened in New York last week.
Right.
Zoran Mandani won the primary, and his the biggest voter turnout was from young people of like of 18 to 24, and they voted progressive all the way. So that made me feel a little better.
Yeah, do you think, it's one thing they'll say, well, young people didn't vote for Kamala or Joe Biden. Do you think it was more about the image than the ideology? Meaning they want somebody they can relate to, somebody who is of their realm, so to speak, somebody they can look up to. They're not going to look up to an 85-year-old guy or apparently a black woman. But even though this guy is Muslim, he's young, he's smart, he's articulate. That should be a red flag to the Democratic Party. Maybe we should go that way if we. They keep saying, how are we going to get young men? Well, get young fucking candidates. It seems very simple.
Yeah, I mean, I think he did a lot of things right, and he learned something from Donald Trump's playbook in that he spoke to the people. He didn't speak down to them. He spoke to the issues that people are experiencing. But he did one better though. He went to people where they are on the streets. He went to people, you know, in the little restaurants and stuff, and it's like, yeah, I'm one of you people too. I'm just a guy that wants to make a difference, you know. He's never been a politician really. He's a smart guy and he knows how to talk with people. and he can relate to people, and he speaks to the issues that people that are thinking about, and not to bash on what Kamala and Joe did, um, but people aren't necessarily as worried about democracy as they are staying afloat themselves. And Mon- Zoran Mandani really did a good job of saying, "You're struggling, and I know why, and I know how to fix it." And I think that's
That's
something that we need to deal with.
well, that's a good point. I think Kamala, uh, not Kamala, the campaign, the mistake they made. They took the easy way out. Donald Trump's bad because of this. Donald Trump did this. Donald Trump did that. And all the while, you've got kids your age that aren't making enough money to buy homes or buy new cars or pay off school loans or anything. They didn't seem to be addressing the problems that are important to you. So this
Right.
Mondami guy comes out and he goes just the opposite way. He gets down off a pedestal, he gets in the mud and the muck with everybody and says, "Listen, I know this is fucked up, and I got an idea. This is what we can do." Now, whether they believe he can do it or not, at least somebody's going to try to help him. And I think a lot of times with Democrats lately, they're more the older folks on top that have all kinds of money, and people aren't buying their bullshit, and probably
Yeah.
justifiably so. So for you as a young man, if somebody like Mondami walks up to you, I mean, keep in mind this is just a primary for the mayor's job in New York, but this has caused kind of a tidal wave in politics because it says something that the Democrats have been trying to say doesn't exist, and turns out they're wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, like, what was it? A couple days ago, we find out that some like 5,000 young people have decided to run for an office since then.
I think that's fantastic.
Oh, it's wonderful. And then there's another guy. A I don't know what nationality he is, maybe Indian or something, but he's running against Nancy Pelosi in
You're
San
right. I heard
Francisco.
about him. I heard about him today. Um, and once again, we've got Mondami in New York, and this Indian fella that has another Indian name. It'd be kind of nice in some of those southern states we get a normal name like a Pete Johnson or something like that, um, because we still have to deal with those people that are upset about the immigrants and the brown people coming in and stealing our jobs. Um, the thing about did you hear that Donald Trump's talking about? Well, I got to find a way to deport um, Mondami, and I'm thinking to myself, you're not trying to save anybody. You're fucking terrified of this guy because he's playing your game. He's younger, he's more appealing, and he's doing it better than you. And this has got to be troubling for the Republicans.
Oh, very definitely. He's he obviously feels very threatened by him because Mondami found the answer for the Democrats,
Right.
and Trump knows it. And Trump knows it. And so are the establishment Democrats. Have you noticed? Kurt, like
Exactly. They're
you'll
upset
note
too.
you'll notice Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer are saying, I'm not so sure about this guy, and da da da, and Kirsten Gillibrand came out and said some fucking wackadoo thing about him, and later walked it back, and it's like,
Yeah, she
y'all are nuts.
apologized. Well, you better get on board because that is the future. You old
It is.
people. I got to tell you, Hakeem Jeffries is an absolute disappointment to me. When I first saw him, I thought, oh, this guy's going to be great. He's a tough talker. He's articulate. He's strong. And and right now he's just a wet rag being dragged around by Nancy Pelosi and Schumer and APAC and all this other shit. He's a complete waste. I was looking forward to him being Speaker of the House. Frankly, I hope they find somebody better should they get in a position where the Democrats are in control.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Dude, I was so thrilled when he got elected, but and every now and then I'll see glimpses of what he could be. You know,
Hmm.
like like
Absolutely.
a month ago or something like that, he told off the speaker because he was being reprimanded for no reason or something. And
Right.
the speaker finally said, "Whoa, understood. I give." I'm like, that's what that dude could be like if Nancy Pelosi wasn't in the House pulling his strings. You know, if
Well,
he could just be his own, if he could be his own man, he'd be fucking amazing. But he can't.
yeah, I would think so. But he could. He could now if he wanted to, if he was going to be a man and stand up. Now, if Pelosi loses, which in 2026, which she certainly could. I mean, she's a billion years old, and a good candidate like Mondami could beat her in the primary. It'll be interesting to see what happens. But even if Hakeem does start to come out of his shell and do the things he's supposed to or should be able to do, I still don't know if I could trust him because he's easily sucked into shit. I mean, it's like Trumplefucks. Everybody says, well, once they realize they're wrong, we need to accept them in. No, because I can't trust you. I don't know that some other clown train's going to come by and you're going to jump on board. So I don't know. I don't know if I could ever trust Hakeem Jeffries at this point because he's had the opportunity to do some things and he's done nothing.
Yeah, he's gonna have to really show me some stuff, I think. But you know, it's 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 a shame too because he's from New York City as well. I mean, his
Right.
district is in New York. You would
Right.
think you would think that he would, you know, kind of feel the tide pulling there a little bit,
You would think
but
so.
apparently not.
Is it as a young man, as a young voter, mid 20s? You went through the Kamala Harris thing. You voted for Kamala Harris. She was a great candidate for whatever reason she lost.
Voted
There
for
could be any number
voted
of
for
reasons.
Biden too.
You voted for Biden too. Okay. And so once you done that and you were disappointed on November 5th, is seeing a candidate like Mondami or this guy out in San Francisco going up against Pelosi, is that something as a young man, a young white man, is that something that catches your interest or gives you excitement about participating in politics? Is that what it's going to take, younger candidates?
Definitely, definitely. Like as like for my generation, it's like the world has been run by the older people for
Mm-hmm.
us, and it's like the greatest generation won World War II. They set up the economic boom, the mid 1900s and everything, and they really set things up for uh for your generation. And
Right.
no, no, nothing against you, of course. I mean, you're not the problem, obviously, but it feels like the tail end of the greatest generation and the boomer generation combined really kept all of that benefit for themselves and pulled the ladder up behind them. And then they came behind and told the millennials and the Gen X and the Gen Z, "Oh, you're too lazy. You don't deserve this stuff." So we've kind of been fucked our whole life, and to finally find young people our age with some gusto that are running for office and say, "Yeah, these are problems, and we want to fix it.
Yeah,
Let's do this together." That
I'm gl-
that is more energizing to me than fucking anything I've ever known. I mean, it's
yeah.
fantastic to see it.
Now, I'm glad you brought this up because this is an argument I've heard many times, and I don't necessarily agree with you completely. You give the impression that boomers, now, of course, I'm a young boomer, so I'm close to a Gen X, that everything was easy and everything went my way, and I just held on to it and didn't let my kids get it. Here's the one thing I've said to people before. If you're a boomer and you're complaining about millennials, take a look at who fucking raised them. You did. So if your millennials are fucked up, you're to blame because you raised them. Now, on the other side of the coin, I have millennial sons, right? And I don't think they would say that the boomers, well, maybe they would, the boomers took advantage and just left nothing for them. Because I know when they were growing up and I was spending $200 on Batman toys, they didn't say, oh, God, you don't give us anything. They accepted that shit all that well. So the thing is you have to understand if you, when you have kids and grandkids, and they say those Gen Zs, they got it all and just left us nothing. Is it your fault if something went wrong? It's not your fault. See, the people, the working class people, just did what they had to do. Was then and is now the government and what happens with the government and who they vote in. Now you could say the the boomers voted some fucked up people in, and we did. But you guys kind of helped to vote in fucking Donald Trump. So, 30 years from now, your kids are going to go, "What the fuck is wrong? What did you do? You fucked up this country. That's going to be your fault, John."
Yeah,
So to say the millennials did this to you, or the boomers did this to you, that's not really true. It's whatever government did. Government's been doing it to all of us forever. Because as much as you might think a boomer had it great, I grew up in the 60s and 70s. There was a lot of things that weren't great. We had high interest rates. You buy a house, interest rates were 17%. Oh, thanks for that. Gas prices, gas shortages. We had wars, we had assassinations. You can look back and say it might have been great, but it wasn't great. Everybody has their burden to bear. And I
yeah,
think at this point, we can't say, well, we'd be okay if it weren't for the boomers. Or I could say we'd be better if the greatest generation did this. See, that's the funny thing is my parents weren't really the greatest generation. They were born in 1940. So they weren't boomers and they weren't the greatest generation. They were kind of in between someplace. Um, I think all you can really do, I do get tired of people blaming millennials and Gen Zs and millennials and Gen Zs blaming boomers. That's not
yeah,
the point. The point is we've got a government that has fucked with us for decades and decades. Instead of worrying about what mom and dad did or didn't do, let's focus on the government and get them working for us for fucking once.
yeah, exactly. And I realize there's nuance to it, but that's kind of the perception.
Yeah, it
Where
is a perception.
we kind of feel like we've just been taken for a ride and no one really gives a shit about us. And we've got people that are fucking 200 years old in the government still. Well, they're making legislation that's going to have lasting effects for the next 50 years, and they're going to fucking die in 5 years. It's like
I
they don't
I
have to
will
care.
I will tell you this. There is one thing you can blame Gen X and some of the boomers for. And they did fuck you over on this deal. I will guarantee you. And I saw how my son struggled through it. Um, in the 60s and 70s, we did crazy shit. We never got in trouble. We never got caught. We didn't go to jail. We had parties and beer and crazy shit. And by the time we grew up and said, we aren't having our kids do that shit. So we aced a lot of that shit's now illegal that we used to do. So you can thank us for harshing your buzz, as it were, when it came to being a teenager, because we fucked it
Yeah,
up for you. I'm just telling you, we fucked it up for you.
damn it, we
Um,
we can't have fun.
yeah, you can have fun, and I'm glad of it because if I had to watch my kids do the same thing I did, holy fuck, would not
I
want to
can't
do that.
I can't say I haven't done some stupid shit, but yeah,
But my kids got to the point where they're out of high school, and they set me down and they tell me all the crazy things they did in high school. And as I'm listening, I'm thinking to myself, "You guys are pussies. You didn't do shit. What the fuck? You pussy ass bitches. You didn't do shit." Um, but but the point of it is is we are where we are now. And when I'm dead, and your grandkids are going to come to you and say, "Grandpa John, the fuck was up with Donald Trump? How did all your little buddies vote for Donald Trump? This mess that we're in, that we're still digging out of, your fault, motherfucker, because you voted for him, even though you didn't vote for him." See, that's the thing. Uh, Government and parties do a wonderful job of dividing us. I hate you because you're Democrat. You hate me because I'm Republican. Presumably, everybody wants to be comfortable, profitable, full, housed, clothed, and all those things. Presumably, everybody wants that. But somehow the government splits us up and says, these are the bad guys and these are the good guys. I hope people are starting to realize the bad guys are the rich guys. The good guys are the middle class and the poor class just trying to get by, and we keep getting shit on. And this big budget bill is a perfect example. They want to take away more from us and give it to a bunch of people that don't need it. And once
Yeah,
people realize that, we can place the blame in the proper location.
and I think this bill is waking people up to that because it's like for someone that makes $15,000 a year, their taxes are going up like $2,000 a year or something.
Right, right.
I mean, it's like another $400 a month that they're paying in taxes. They can't afford
That's
that shit.
significant. No, hell no.
That's
Well,
that's a huge deal, you know?
it is a huge deal. And you've told me before that there are people around you, younger guys, maybe not as young as you, but younger guys that are in the farming business that voted for Donald Trump. Are any of them that you can see had any sort of epiphany and realizing that they're going to get fucked? Are they realizing this yet, or do they still have to get burnt to the ground before they realize it?
Unfortunately, I think a lot of them got to get kicked in the ass first. But I will
Wow.
say there are a lot less Trump flags around. And like
Good.
I was driving through Bloomington today, and there was one house on the corner that had a big ass Trump flag on their flagpole, and it wasn't there anymore.
Wow.
So it's amazing.
Well, what's amazing is Donald Trump's continuing trying to grift. You know, he's ripping all these people, and then he announces his new cologne. That's coming out.
What's
And
that
then,
smell like? Shit and
oh,
failure?
yeah, I think that's what it was called originally, shit and failure. But
Did you see the figurine that was on the bottle? Some skinny tall guy and like gold leaf or whatever. It's like, who the fuck is that? That ain't Donald Trump. I can tell you that.
yeah, no shit. You know, it was one of the most disgusting things. And I started to get texts from Old Soul. Old Soul gets emotional about things when people are hurt. And I get that. It upsets me too. But I told her, I said, look, man, what's happening is happening. Don't worry about stuff you can't handle. Just do the best of what you've got. And frankly, Old Soul does more than any of us. She's out tramping around the country doing things that probably aren't safe. She ends up in a ICE detention unit, for God's sake. But she was really upset about this alligator Alcatraz down in Florida. And it was funny because she was on a live and we were talking, somebody from Florida was on and she was talking to her about it, and she was getting more and more upset about this alligator infested internment camp or concentration camp that they were putting up, and she was getting upset about it. Now she gave her brother, who's a former military guy, my phone number in case there was some kind of problem, so they could let me know. And when she got put in ICE detention, her brother started texting me, and we were going back and forth trying to figure out what the fuck's going on with Old Soul. But after we did that live, um, he texted me covertly. He said, Mike, I was just listening to your live and I heard Old Soul. I can hear it in her voice. She's going to want to go to Florida. I've told her she can't go to Florida. It's not a safe place for her. If she asks you, tell her don't go. And so today, she goes, yeah, I was thinking about going to Florida, but my brother made me promise not to go to Florida. I said, yeah, I know. She goes, how do you know? He said, because he was listening to the live and um, he heard it in your voice. He said, she's going to go to Florida. Tell her no. And she goes, I don't, when I told her that, she goes, oh man, I don't know about how I feel about him eavesdropping on my conversations. I said, oh, Soul, why is it always about just you? Your brother was listening to the show because he's a big fan of mine. You just happened to be there talking the shit you talked, and he heard it. Well,
I
she's
think
on
that's
a
funny.
road trip.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny.
What what what? How dare he listen to a live stream that thousands of people are watching. It
She's
wasn't
just
exactly a private conversation.
no, it wasn't a private conversation, and um, she's just upset. Her brother's probably a little smarter than she is because she's older and he knows her. And I'm coming to know her too. And I tell her, you know what? There's a lot of stuff you can do right in your area where you're safe. And if you go out there and something happens to you, then what happens? She says, what do you mean? I said, well, there's going to be a lot of people that aren't going to get the help that you could give them because you're not in a position to do it. So why put yourself at risk? And she convinces herself, well, this isn't risky because of this. And generally, she's very safe. She's a smart woman. There's no question about that. But I, I, I don't like seeing her or anybody taking undue risk. It doesn't make any sense. That said, I'm just a guy in my living room. I don't have a lot of power over Old Soul and telling her what to do or not to do. She'll ask me and I'll tell her, but it's up to her whether she takes the advice or not. Now, her brother's a different deal. She lives near him, so she has to deal with him. So I'll let him be the bad guy.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I have a lot of respect for Old Soul. For She's a way better person than I could ever be.
She's a
But
better person than most of us, certainly me, and she's an activist in the real sense. I told her one time on the air, I said, you do a lot of good stuff. You don't have to be fucking Harriet Tubman here. You don't have to risk your life to do good. Just do what you can, man. Just do what you
yeah.
can. And um, so anyway, she's off someplace helping some women. I know where she is. I'm not going to say because it's better she keep anonymity, but it's a much safer place than Florida. I said, don't go to Florida. Don't go to Texas. I mean, I'm an old white guy. I won't go to Florida or Texas. So a young black woman, don't go there. They don't
Yeah.
like you there. Clearly, they don't like you. Um, so with what's going on um, with that Alcatraz thing, here's the thing that troubled me about it, and it's just one more grift for Donald Trump. He goes down to Florida in the Everglades to see these tent camp put up. There's no air conditioning, nothing. They spent hundreds of millions of dollars to put this together, taxpayer money. You know what else paid for it? You know where they got the money to build this alligator Alcatraz?
I heard it was FEMA.
FEMA. FEMA. So you're building that thing, and a hurricane comes through Florida this year, and you can't afford to fix that, but you got that fucking alligator Alcatraz. Just ridiculous.
Well, if a hurricane comes through, they're not going to have an alligator Alcatraz anymore.
Well, that's true. The tents will probably go up pretty quickly, but
Yeah.
to add insult to injury to this whole thing, they're fucking selling T-shirts that say Alligator Alcatraz to raise money for Donald Trump's whatever. I mean, he's not running again for election, so what's he raising money for other than to put it in his pocket?
Yeah, his pocket. I. It's just gross. Who We have a lot of sick motherfuckers in this country. Like
Oh
we
no
really do.
shit.
Just unbelievable.
Well, the thing about it is, you're down in Florida. You got these T-shirts that Alligator Alcatraz. There are going to be redneck motherfuckers buying those things up and wearing them everywhere in hopes that they can trigger somebody. And I think the best thing you can do with Trumplefucks at this point, disregard them, ignore them because they love the attention. People like that I've dealt with in my past, I just ignored them and made them inconsequential, and that pissed them off more than fighting with them.
Yeah. Well, they want the fight. They need it. They need a confrontation. And you know, I see it all the time in comment sections on videos. They'll lay some rage bait or whatever, and it's like
Yeah.
they'll ramble off some crazy fact, and it usually I don't respond. But if I feel I have to, just to clear it up for other people that are looking through the comment section, I'll say, no, you're wrong, and here's why. And I don't get mad, I don't get heated, I don't throw any insults, I don't do anything. I just say incorrect. Here's why. And then they don't respond because what are they gonna fucking say? What are they gonna say? They got nothing.
Well, yeah, they got nothing.
Yeah.
Um, now, now you post you post on TikTok, right?
Oh, occasionally, not very often.
And it's mostly farming type stuff, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you hear? Will, of course.
Hmm.
Will had his Binder 38 US. He got permanently banned. He had about 4,000 followers. Um, then he started another one, Binder US 38 2. He had about 250 followers. He got banned. And
Really?
now yeah, he got banned twice. And now he's got a third account. And just so the folks out there know uh, where to find him, because I was amazed in my comments. I did a TikTok about it. His current account is called Kumquat6. Why it's Kumquat6? I said go with lefty. I said go with lefty Latino or liberal Latino or something like that. Something different than
Okay.
he had before, so they don't dig it out there. So he's Kumquat6 right
So
now.
that's who that was. I saw that a
Yeah,
Kumquat 6 added me, and I'm like, who the fuck is that? Every now and then I'll get randos in there that are like I've
yeah.
never associated
So
with. And half the time they're just bots, so I just ignore them. But I'll go in there and add
yeah.
them.
Usually when you're an old man, like in your 50s or 60s, you get all these beautiful 2020 era women in there saying, God, you're handsome. That's a fucking bot right away.
I get those all
But
the time. I'll get like 30 message requests every week, and I'm like, yeah, delete, delete, delete. Okay.
they'll say, you want to be friends? I usually write back, I'm not very friendly. So, and then I block them because it's just not worth the fucking hassle. But um, I suppose something I put it out there in this TikTok when I was talking about Will and saying where you can find him and all that stuff, and I was kind of angry about it, and I said, these guys are bullies. They come in, they find somebody they don't like, they group together a bunch of their clowns, and they attack somebody, and that's what gets them banned. And I said, if you want to play that game, it's one thing. I know you guys have, the Trump fucks out there doing this have 200 followers and no videos, or 2 followers and no videos. There really isn't much to their substance to their account. I said, I might start a little program where every day I will come out, choose a random Trump fuck account, and just say the word jackpot. And when I say the word jackpot, all my 470,000 followers know that that means go take that motherfucker down. And I said, I don't know that I would do that, but I don't know that I wouldn't because I'm kind of that motherfucker. I was
I think
amazed
that's
by how I was amazed by how many people in the comments said, "Fucking do it, fucking do it."
well, that's kind of like that Tiziant guy on there too.
Yeah,
He'll pick out like people will send him random people that are just fucking idiots or something like that, or like they're really really fucking rude to grandma or something like that. And
yeah,
he'll go and find like his Facebook page, the company he works for, the phone number for the company he works for, and just be like, "Gee, it'd sure be a shame if his employer found out he was abusing people or whatever." And it's like, I think that's pretty cool, honestly.
well, well, and I tell you what, I don't know if that's the kind of thing I want to do because I usually ignore the Trump fucks, but it does piss me off that they go against smaller creators.
Yeah.
uh, I put that video out and I said, well, maybe I'll just go after the Trump fucks and tear their ass down. You know what was interesting? Not one Trump fuck in those comments. Not
No
one.
kidding. Wow.
No, there
They're
was
gonna leave you
nobody.
alone now.
Well, yeah, presumably, but that still doesn't mean they aren't deserving a little revenge. But they're under the impression that they're the biggest, toughest guys in the room. And I'm certainly not the biggest, toughest TikTok guy. There's people like Hawk and other people that have a lot more. If a few of those people said, fuck it, let's just go burn down some Trumplefucks, it would be easy to do. I mean, if
It
I
would
could
be.
do it, Hawk could do it. All Tom Powell could do it. Anybody could do it. And I just wanted to throw that out there, and because I know they're thinking, oh, I never thought of that. That could be fucked up. So we'll see where it goes, and if I get
I
if
think
they
that's
take down
I think that's a great
Kumquat
idea.
six, I may. I think if they take down Kumquat six, I may be hard to be held back from doing it.
Yeah. I think that's a great idea anyway. I mean, those guys are just, I mean, probably 80% of them are bot accounts, but even
Yeah,
still, get the bot
yeah.
accounts taken down, you know?
Well, and you can almost be certain that they've done something that's breaking the the
Social
rules
norm,
of TikTok.
at least. Yeah.
Did you hear while we're talking about TikTok anyway, you know, Donald Trump gave it another 90 days, as I knew he would, because there's too much money on the table and he's got friends tied into TikTok. He's not even supposed to extend it 90 days or the 75 days he did before. That wasn't the deal with the bill, but he's just doing it anyways because he's just doing whatever he wants. He came out yesterday and he says, "Well, it looks like we might have a buyer for TikTok." And you knew he was lying the moment he said, "We should have an answer in 2 weeks."
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
Yeah. We've
yeah,
heard that.
two
We've heard
weeks.
that. He's going to 2 weeks himself right out of the presidency with that whole TikTok thing.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And so we'll see where that goes. I'm at a point now where I almost don't care. There are other
Yeah.
platforms, and I'd hate to see them take down TikTok. But if this is how they're behaving with their creators and just getting people blown out for no goddamn good reason, everything has a shelf life, and TikTok will have a shelf life, and it won't be around 5 years from now, and something else will replace it. So I guess I don't worry about it too much. There are some mainstays like YouTube and such that will always be there. So as long as you got something going there, you'll be all right.
Yeah, and I've noticed, the last time there was the threat of it being banned, that was kind of the general consensus. It felt like people were kind of like, well, if it goes away, it goes away. I'll see you over on YouTube. It's like, who
Yeah,
gives a fuck? The first time it was like Armageddon, the world's ending, and then they TikTok came back after that like 5 hours or whatever, and it was totally different, and it was like beating the crap out of left wing creators, and it was like, yeah, who needs this now? You know?
but isn't that always the way with Donald Trump? He beats things to death,
Yeah,
like the tariffs. Oh, we're going to get the tariffs, and everybody's nervous and arguing and scared and doing all this stuff. Then he pulls back on the tariffs. Then he puts them on again. People are going, fuck the tariffs. I don't even fucking care anymore. We have no control over what this idiot's going to do. He doesn't have the courage. He's chicken. He'll pull it back at the last minute. That's why I'm interested to see what happens on July 9th, because that's when the 90 days is up. Does he add another 90 days to it? I bet he does that, something like that, maybe 30
probably,
days.
probably.
Because I don't know if you've ever noticed, everything Donald Trump does, his main strategy is delay. Just delay it. Just court cases, promises, everything's delayed because he's not good at delivering anything. He's good at
That's
talking shit, but he can't deliver. He has no substance.
well, that's all he's ever done. I mean, his whole business career was just delay, delay, delay. He'd hire work done, and then he wouldn't pay the contractor, wouldn't pay the contractor. The contractor would sue him. Delay, delay, delay. Finally, they'd just go bankrupt, and he'd move on. So
Yeah.
that's how he's conducted himself his whole life, and
Yeah,
it
pretty
works.
much. Well, sadly, it does. For the average person with half a brain, you wouldn't think it would work. But somebody asked me one time, he says, "You think you're smarter than everybody?" I go, "No, I don't think I'm smarter than everybody, but I know I'm smarter than 49% of this country." the ones that voted for Donald Trump when you knew he was a criminal. It's
Yeah.
how do you see this ending? Do you see Donald Trump getting his due, or choking on a Big Mac and shitting his pants and falling on the floor? What do you think is going to happen with this?
I would enjoy both equally, but I don't think he survives the term.
No, I don't either. I don't either. I
I
mean, he
mean,
doesn't look
he
good right
he
now.
no, like I saw him speak at that alligator Alcatraz thing. He does not look like a well man.
No.
He's he's gone downhill fast, like real fast.
Yeah, I think he's got some physical issues that we don't know because he won't tell us. His face looks different. He's talking lazier. And I don't know if you saw where he was on an interview with Maria Bartiromo. That was just absolutely fucking unhinged. They
They're
asked,
they're
he keeps
yeah,
saying they're going up 68% if you don't pass this bill. And she said, well, explain that. He had no clue. He made some shit up and mumbled for a bit.
yeah. And they edited the shit out of that interview and he still looked like a hot mess. You know? There was no
And I
saving
don't,
it.
well, that you're absolutely right. Somebody might say, well, they didn't edit it. They cut off words and stuff so that they edited it. If
Mhm.
Fox News has to edit what Donald Trump is saying, there's some problems.
Yeah. So I wonder how long that interview was to get that. What? How long was that segment even? I don't even know.
I don't even know. I'm sure they try to keep it as short as possible. Um, but I wonder if they're going to see him giving any more lengthy speech like campaign rallies or anything. I don't know how long he spoke down in Florida, but it wasn't very long. I think we're going to see that more and more. We're at a point now where I think they're just kind of propping him up like Bernie's weekend at Bernie's.
Yeah.
Literally, they are, and that's why I've told people. I said Donald Trump is just the face. He's too dumb to be evil, but the evil people around him are the ones that are pulling the strings. And as long as they can prop him up to um, mimic whatever they're telling him to say, they'll keep him around. When it's not feasible, they'll kick him to the curb.
Yeah. They need him. And I think the biggest mistake the Heritage Foundation made was picking Donald Trump to be their front man because they needed his charisma, but they did not count on him taking their cult, the Heritage Foundation cult, and creating a cult of personality.
Right.
And so the problem they're going to have now is he took all of their supporters and turns them into a cult of personality. Now, when Donald Trump's gone, the whole thing collapses. And I honestly think if they had anyone else but Donald Trump, I think they'd have been a lot more successful.
Oh, no question. But think about what you just said. What you just said was that Donald Trump ruined Project 2025's credibility. That's fucking crazy to
Yep.
even imagine, but it's absolutely true. That's what he did. He took a fucked up
Yeah.
organization and made it look stupid.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. I mean, so now they're forced to prop up this this boob, this idiot who doesn't know his left foot from his right foot. They're forced to use him as their front man, and
Right.
I mean, the guy's practically on death's doorstep. You know,
Yeah.
he can't even hardly talk. And
Well,
they need his face. That's all they need him for.
when I've talked to other folks, in my opinion, when Donald Trump is gone, presumably dead or whatever, um, that is the diminishment of MAGA because they need a personality like what they do and what they want and what they believe is so fucking crazy. You need somebody as audacious and buffoonish as Donald Trump to do it. And there really is nobody to fill those shoes. There's going to be nobody that commands the loyalty that he does from idiots,
Yeah,
not even JD Vance. JD Vance is going to be JD Vance isn't well liked by MAGA right now, and they'll probably hate him even more because he won't be Donald Trump. And
Yeah,
so MAGA is in for some trouble if anything happens to Donald Trump. And of course, you and I are hoping like hell something bad happens to him. I see it's not enough for me to want it bad happen to him or him to keel over. I need it to be really embarrassing too. So on his way out, he gets the worst hit he can get by being
yeah,
embarrassed as a narcissist.
yeah, yeah. It'll be the most satisfying, that's for sure. But you're absolutely right about Vance, though. I mean, everybody's all worried about if they impeach Trump, then we'll have Vance, and Vance is the guy they've always wanted. It was the design. I'm like, no, okay, no. Vance was the only reason Vance even exists as a politician is because Peter Thiel bought him that seat. Okay,
Right. Well, bought him the
the
Senate
guy,
seat and then the vice presidency. Yeah.
yeah, the guy has absolutely no charisma. He has no like he doesn't stand for anything, and before Trump named him to asked him to be his running mate, Vance was all, oh, I'm a never Trumper. Trump is
Yeah.
the American Hitler and blah blah blah. You know, a year later, oh, I love Trump. I'm his vice president. It's like
Yeah.
the the guy the guy is so spineless, and even MAGA sees it.
Yeah. I don't think he has a lot of respect from anybody, but even MAGA. I mean, for realistic terms, if you're not Trump, you're nobody to MAGA. That's just the way it
Yeah,
is. And that's why I've said too that people say, well, they'll get him on the 25th Amendment. I don't think so because it's a long process and it's typically only temporary. Somebody has surgery or something's going wrong. Nobody's ever been given the 25th Amendment, and some people have, including Ronald Reagan, including George W. Bush, I think. But it was always temporary. And there's a way for the president to come back after being given the 25th Amendment. And impeachment, the problem with impeachment at this point, well, it's already gone very badly, but when the Republicans believe it, if the Republican Party does the 25th Amendment or impeaches Donald Trump, no matter what he did and no matter what reason they gave for impeaching him, the base will hate them for it. So you immediately fractured the Republican Party.
yeah,
I've said many times before the best thing they can hope for, he keels over and dies while he's in office so they can all get down on their knees and pray to the new martyr and say, oh, this is terrible, but we've got to fight for Donald Trump. That's the only way they get out of this clean.
it is. Yeah, yeah. And so the 25th Amendment is initiated by the vice president and a good chunk of the cabinet.
Right.
That ain't gonna happen. I could see maybe Vance maybe doing it if he gets power hungry, but that would be an unwise move on his part because he will gain the notoriety of being the guy who took down Trump, and MAGA would never go for that. So
Well, and, and don't you think Vance might even be under the microscope by now for Trump? Trump is naturally a paranoid person. He's paranoid. And then remember when they had the first fight with Elon Musk? Elon Musk, who's Vance's buddy, and the other guy's buddy, Peter Thiel. Elon Musk said Donald Trump should be impeached and JD Vance should replace him. Now, if I'm Donald Trump, I'm thinking, oh, these fuckers are working on something, especially if I'm paranoid. I wonder what kind of relationship Trump and Vance have right now. I don't think it was good in the first place, but I'll bet you he's looking sideways at JD Vance at this point and keeping him at a distance.
yeah, I wouldn't doubt it. I wouldn't doubt it. I mean, I kind of liken Trump to being like Hitler in that way.
Yeah.
Hitler was very paranoid. He kept his whole inner circle at arm's length. He didn't trust any of them because he always thought that they were conniving to try and topple him or whatever, especially toward the end of the war. But
Well, that's because they were.
Yeah.
they tried to kill him. So,
Push.
so it was justifiable.
Yeah. And I think Trump would be justified in feeling the same way.
Yeah, yeah. You know, that's the thing. What I just said about how the Republican Party fares if they're done with Donald Trump, impeachment, 25th Amendment don't work because they fuck up 25-30% of their supporters. Um, the hope that he uh, keels over, that's the best outcome for them. Um, but Donald Trump always eats McDonald's because he's afraid people are poisoning his food. That's why he eats McDonald's all the time. I don't know if everybody knows that, but he figures if it comes from McDonald's, nobody else has touched it but some pimple-faced teenager in a nondescript McDonald's, and he feels safer that way.
That's just weird.
It is just
if if
weird.
if I wanted to keep myself from eating poison, I would specifically not eat McDonald's. But
I'd eat Hormel chili every day and open the can myself. That's what I would do
yeah,
if I was really
yeah,
worried about that shit. Speaking of weird, did you see that interview that Peter Thiel did?
I did. I was just gonna mention that. Boy, that
Wow.
that is one messed up dude, huh? Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
for a guy who's rich and successful as he is, he sure seems unsure of himself, or at least
Yeah,
inarticulate. I mean, I think he likes to give the impression that he's talking at a different level that we don't understand, but I didn't get that impression at all. I thought he was very scattered, and I don't think he was trying to explain something and he was having a hard time doing it because it's so esoteric.
yeah, I got that vibe too. He was trying to sound like he was really, really smart,
Yeah.
but and that's what Elon Musk did too. And now he speaks weird just because he's on fucking drugs all the time. But before he was a drug addict, you could tell he did the same thing. He used a lot of big words and he sounded very thoughtful and everything. And it's like, you know, y'all are down here and I'm up here. But this Peter
Uh,
Thiel guy, it's just like, you want to turn all people into fucking fuel? What? What are you talking about?
Yeah.
And all the people out there that are fucking worried about Peter Thiel taking over Washington D.C. Do you really think that motherfucker is going to be popular at all to take over anything?
No.
No.
No. No. He needs a front man, and if his best front man is J.D. Vance, you got to question his judgment at that point. If you got
Yeah.
billions of dollars, you would think you could do better than J.D. Vance. There were other people in the Republican Party that could have actually pulled something off. Um, and then Peter Thiel, I don't know what to think about him. A lot of people are afraid of him. When I saw that interview, I go, wow, he wouldn't be hard to trip up. He wouldn't be hard to make look stupid because he was getting softball questions and he seemed confused and nervous about the answers he was given.
He couldn't answer him. And it's kind of weird. Like all those big techie guys, Peter Thiel, Curtis Yarvin, Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, Jeff. I mean, they're all so awkward and weird and like, you know, Mark Zuckerberg made that video during COVID talking to his customers or whatever, and he had to try and look human. He had a bottle of Sweet Baby Ray's barbecue sauce on the bookshelf behind him, and like, okay, I have to act like a human now. And then also there's Jeff Bezos, who looks like a fucking mannequin,
Yeah.
spends
Yeah.
$100 million on a wedding. Like these
And then gets
people
beat up for it.
these people are so fucking weird and awkward and shit. And it's like they're trying to fit in with society, but they just can't, and so that's why they buy someone like JD Vance, because he's the hillbilly guy, he's relatable.
I
And
was
so
talking to
that's
Ed. I was talking to Ed on the show, and um, what JD Vance was known for before he bought his senatorship and the vice presidency for writing the book Hillbilly Elegy that they also made into a movie. And it was, it was a decent book and whatever. He was a kid that grew up in Ohio and he had family in the hills of Virginia or whatever the fuck it was. So he felt like he was, qualified in writing about these hillbillies. And it sounds like the hillbillies weren't too happy about it because he wasn't totally honest about it. But Ed said something. He's because Ed's a writer and he's an actor, and he says, I've read the book Hillbilly Elegy, and I've listened to J.D. Vance talk. He said there's no way J.D. Vance wrote that book. He had to have a ghostwriter do it because he doesn't talk the way he writes, and that's unusual. And it wouldn't be surprising. I mean, Donald Trump didn't write his books. J.D.
Mm-mm.
Vance not writing his books, that's not all that crazy.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me one bit at all. I mean, when I listen to Vance talk, you know, there he sounds like he's fairly normal, but he hasn't one original thought at all. It all comes from somebody else.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's what I try to tell people too is that you're worried about JD Vance. Here's what we know about JD Vance. He's weak-minded and he's easily manipulated. Donald Trump's done it, the Republican Party's done it, Peter Thiel's done it, Elon Musk has done it. He doesn't have a thought for himself. And if he ended up being president, you don't have to worry about what JD Vance knows or does because he isn't going to be allowed to do it. He's going to do whatever he's fucking told in hopes of trying to get reelected in 2028, which won't happen. He doesn't have the charisma or the likability. I mean, you think Hillary Clinton wasn't likable? Motherfucker. JD Vance
Yeah.
is way less likable than Hillary.
Oh, yeah. And people again, people worried about Vance being president. I think Senate Republicans would have a really short leash on him. The House Republicans not so much, but in the Senate they know him, and they're in general they're not as fucking crazy. So I think they judge judging by how they were reacting this afternoon after the bill passed, a lot of them seem fairly rattled by it.
Well, they should be rattled by it, and the
Well, yeah,
thing about it is,
yeah,
think about what you just said. The Senate, they're not so crazy. Yet today they passed the worst bill in
exactly.
history.
Yeah,
So I don't know. You might be a little off there. But
yeah,
you're right. They're rattled after the fact. And I knew that would happen because they're not stupid enough not to understand that when they voted for that bill, if that's the last vote they have on this bill, that's what they're going to have to live with for the rest of their lives. And when it goes bad, and it most certainly will go bad, and it will be advertised and reported as a horrible thing, and people will suffer and people will struggle with it. By doing what they did, they may have ended their political careers. Literally, may have ended it.
yeah,
They'll go into their next election, won't get reelected, and they'll have this stigma on them for the rest of their lives. And that's it's one thing if you're Chuck Grassley and you're probably going to die anyway, but if you're a young guy like Josh Hawley, you're going to have to find another area of business because politician ain't going to be, when 600,000 people get kicked off health care in Missouri. Uh, Good luck trying to get reelected.
yeah, yeah. And I was looking at there's that picture of Lisa Murkowski
Yeah,
after the vote. She's holding her folder, and boy, she just looked terrified.
and she
Did you
should
see
be.
did you see that
I
picture?
did. I saw the picture and I saw the video out when she was talking to somebody,
Yeah,
and she was being called out, and she was not handling it well. She was given the talk and she says, "Do I like the bill? No, I don't like the bill. I don't like how it's going to hurt other people. And this is what she said, I can only hope that when it goes back to the House, they make some changes because we're not there yet." Yeah, bitch, but you voted for it. It's not
yeah,
there yet. You say you don't like it, but you voted for it. Answer the question why? Isn't it your job to vote for the best thing for your people? But you voted against your people, and now you're hoping the House of Representatives saves you. Jesus Christ, what a fucking coward.
yeah. I I couldn't believe my ears with that one. But she not as much some of the other senators, but she was she's definitely struggling with this one. As well she should be, you know. It was a terrible decision. And if she didn't fucking like the bill, don't vote for it.
Well,
That's what you're sent there to do. Represent,
and
you know?
and if you're struggling with it, did you not know that before you voted for it? Trouble is, you knew what the ramifications were afterwards. And now you went and did it. For whatever reason, you're more afraid of Donald Trump than your constituency. That's a bad choice as far as I'm concerned.
It
I
is.
personally think if there's a Republican now that stands up to Donald Trump, say you want to primary me, good. Because henceforth, Donald Trump's life's not going to be better. It's going to get worse and worse. And if you're the one person that stood up like a Tom Tillis or something like that and said, fuck you, this is bullshit, you're going to end up being a hero in spite of the fact that you're going to get your ass kicked at first. You got to have a little
Yeah.
courage. You got to try something to push back to save your soul. Now, Tom Tillis isn't even running. He'll probably sit out for a little bit and run for something else, a governor or something. And he may
Yeah, it
be
wouldn't
able to
surprise
do
me.
that because he saved himself.
Wouldn't surprise me at all. And I think Rand Paul saw this too. You know,
Yeah.
Rand Paul's been speaking out against Trump for quite a while now. And dare I say, he sounds level headed now. I never thought I would say that, but
Yeah.
he's like the one and only Republican that's actually saying anything that's like pertinent right now,
Now, well,
which is
now
crazy.
I
But
will say this about Rand Paul though. Rand Paul does not like the bill. And it has nothing to do with they're going to cut Medicaid. Or, he doesn't think they're cutting enough out of it. So
yeah,
he's not a
yeah,
good guy. He's not a
no,
good guy. And frankly, I would find it very entertaining if his neighbor kicked his ass again. That would be
yeah,
fun. I would
I would approve of that.
I would go Donald Trump and say, if you want to kick his ass again, I'll pay for your lawyer. I won't, of course, but neither would Donald Trump.
Yeah, and I think it's they're setting themselves up for something here. Is you know, Tom Tillis is retiring at the end of the term, and so is Mitch McConnell. Now, Mitch McConnell's seat is probably safer Republican than Tom Tillis. North Carolina is kind of purple now, you know,
Yeah.
so I think it's certainly within the realm of possibility. There's two seats that flip right there.
Well, Mitch McConnell is at death's door, so it's not surprising that he would retire. Tom Tillis isn't quite as old. And I have to wonder somebody about Tom Tillis or some of these many other people that have decided not to run again in the House and or in the Senate. If people are just going, this is totally fucked. I'm tired of this shit. I'm not going to end everything with my reputation just for this. I'll go do something else in a quieter place where I don't completely destroy everything that I've tried to build up. I have to believe there's going to be more people as we get closer to 2026 saying,
Yeah,
yeah, I'm not running. I'm not running.
I think those people are playing the long game. Like you said, I think they know Donald Trump's power is waning. I think they know that their party is going to collapse here pretty soon. Um, Same thing could be said with Brian Kemp choosing not to run for Senate against John
Yeah.
Ossoff. I think he wants to lay low and potentially run for Senate in the next term or even run for president, and he wants to keep a low profile. I think that's what a lot of them are doing, like Don Bacon, Tom Tillis, these guys. You know,
Here's what I'm thinking about um, the governor of Georgia. He he's not running for the Senate seat, and I'm surprised by that. Then I'm thinking to myself, he is probably going to run for president, but in 2028. And here's
mm-hmm.
my theory: Donald Trump is burning down the Republican Party. They look like a fucking mess. They are doing horrible things in this country. Who could you run that would be somewhat normal when you're trying to redeem yourself from all the shit you just wrought on this country? He's the one guy you could put in there and run for president, and he'd say, well, you know, he fought against Donald Trump and he buckled to Donald Trump. He's a more reasonable guy. And I don't know that he really even is, but the perception is that he's a more reasonable guy. So I wouldn't be surprised if they're knowing that this is all going to burn down. You're not going to get another MAGA guy. And this is their chance to try to at least go back to the middle a little bit more so they have a chance to win in the presidential election. Because at this point, they really don't have anybody to run. Nobody that really has a chance because they're all fucking crazy. He's the one guy they could say, well, he was the governor of Georgia. He's relatively normal. He stood up to Donald Trump. I think he's going to run in 2028, to be perfectly honest with you. You haven't heard of anybody else saying they're going to run in 2028 for sure for the Republicans.
Yeah, I think he'll run. And I could also see Mike Pence running too, but we'll see.
Hasn't he been whipped enough? Jesus Christ. Is there's no way Mike
Glutton for
Pence
punishment.
wins an election. I mean,
Yeah.
even though he's speaking out against Donald Trump, he's such a he's what do they
He's
what
so
do they call? He's
he's
such a squishmallow.
yeah, he's he's just some very pasty white guy. It's like they don't make him whiter than that, you know?
He's a pasty white guy. He's evangelical, and he's definitely not gay. So
No,
so he's the
no way.
perfect guy to run for the Republican Party.
Yeah, yeah, I don't know.
It's going to be the Republican. Everybody talks about the Democrats needing to pick somebody to be the leader, um, and start leading uh, the Democratic Party, and they haven't really identified anybody yet. And I'm not surprised by that. And a good example as to why you don't do that too early is Mondami. Mondami becomes a power in the mayoral race in New York, what's the first thing they do? The only thing they know how to do, tear down, defame, and try to rip apart that guy. So whoever is going to be the presidential candidate from the Democratic Party, whatever time period there is before between the time they announce and the election, it's going to be all out by the Republicans trying to pick apart whoever it is. So maybe the
Yeah,
plan is to give them less time to do that.
yeah, and it's frustrating that we don't have a clear leader, but I can certainly understand that. And I think it's smart. Don't give him the opportunity.
Let me ask you, as a young guy who's going to be voting, and you're going to be part of the majority of the people voting in 2028, is there anybody you see that you would hope would run for the presidency that you think young people would relate to?
Uh, well, I think my governor, J.B. Pritzker, and
Right.
probably Andy Bashir, actually, governor of Kentucky.
Yeah, Andy
Uh,
Bashir has been talked about a lot. He was talked about in the last time for vice president and stuff, and he
Yeah,
is a sharp guy. And it says a lot about him being able to be a governor in a very red state. So he's a likely suspect too.
yeah, and he really impresses me. He was on a. I listened to him on a podcast, the Daily Show podcast, or the Weekly Show rather. Well, so it was with Jon Stewart, and he was talking to just a couple hours, and he is a very smart guy, and he's a Democratic governor in a deep red state, and he has like a 70% approval rating in his state.
Wow.
It's crazy. Yeah, it's unbelievable. 68 or 70% approval rating in Kentucky. I think any guy that can do that in a red state should run for president. I mean,
Well, he should be able to win Kentucky anyway, at least get one
yeah.
extra state.
Well, he's proven that a Democrat with progressive policies can be successful in a red state. So why not take it national?
Yeah,
Progressive policies are very popular across a wide spectrum of people. It's just having the right person that can convey how that works to explain it to people. You have to be simple about it. You have to make it make sense, and you have to meet people where they are and talk with them and not at them. You know.
right, right. Well, you mentioned your governor, J.B. Pritzker, and I like what I see, but I don't know much about him. What is it you like about J.B. Pritzker?
Well, he actually just announced he's running for a third term as governor. Um,
Oh, okay.
but yeah. So I don't know if that would be a 2 year gig then, or then hand it off to his lieutenant governor if he won the presidency. But he is a billionaire, but he got it the right way. His family is in the hotel business.
Okay.
Um, so they did not. uh, fucking destroy lives like Donald Trump did to get his billions.
Right.
But
Well, he
he's
seems
a
to have some integrity.
yeah, very much so. And he now when he took office in like what 2018, 2019, um, Illinois was like $15 billion in debt, and the state was like 2 years from going bankrupt.
Right.
He came in, and now in 2025, we have for the seventh year in a row a completely balanced budget.
Wow.
We've paid off all of
That's
that debt, and we're on the plus side now. You know, and that is just absolutely incredible. And he's helped so many people in this state get above the poverty line and everything.
what I like about JB Pritzker from what I've seen from a distance is that he also is a little different than most Democrats in that he's kind of a fighter. He's not afraid
Yeah,
to speak out, to go after Donald Trump or the Republicans in general. And I think that's something we definitely need. That's something that maybe Andy Bashir wouldn't do. He's a little more, I don't know what I would, I like Andy Bashir, but I don't think he's the kind of guy that will look somebody in the face and say, why don't you fuck off? And I think Pritzker probably would, or something along those lines. And given that we're battling a bully, sometimes you need somebody to push back. And in some sense, I think that's why Pritzker might be a better choice.
yeah, yeah, definitely. He's not afraid to tell you what he thinks, and that's something I really respect. His call to action a month or two ago. And it's time to protest. I respect that.
Yeah,
You
absolutely.
and and he's right out there with them. You know,
Yeah.
um, same with your governor. I would say probably Tim Walz too has along the same lines.
I like Tim Walz too. I think, we found out that people like him. So that's a plus.
Yeah,
Um, I don't know what to expect out of Tim Walz because I think he was a disservice to Tim Walz was that they held him back and they should have let him go. I mean, Biden's team held back Kamala. Kamala held back Tim Walz, and that may be part of the problem as to why they lose. Let people be who they are. Let's not try to game this thing and figure it out and try to play these games. Let Tim Walz be who he is. The one thing about Pritzker, I think if he was running, they might say, you need to do this, you need to do that. And I think he would tell the Democrats, fuck you, I'm doing it my way. And we
I
need
think he
somebody who
would.
can do that. And I don't know if Walz can do that or not. I hope he could. I hope he would at that point. And I wouldn't at all be surprised if he ran for president because he's governor of Minnesota and he's been in South Carolina and a bunch of places. So
Yeah,
he's given us some thought.
yeah. I think any one of them three would be fantastic. I really do.
And the best thing about him, white guys.
Yeah, and God, I hate that I have to even agree with that, but
I do too. I do too,
it
because I
appears
think
that we
Kamala
do.
would have been a great president.
I
But
think
do
she
you
would have
get
been
that
amazing.
sense? Do you get that sense too that we're a more racist country or more sexist country than we imagine?
Yeah, I think sexist is the big one. I think if it was Obama, I think he would have won.
Yeah,
You know,
probably right. You're probably
but
right.
um, and I think if it was Biden again, I think he would have won too. It would people would have not been as enthusiastic about voting for him again, but I think he would have won because
Well,
you
yeah, I
know,
do too. I think if the Democrats hadn't sunk him, he
yeah,
probably would have been all right. I mean, he had the bad debate. Well, Donald Trump had a worse debate. So I don't, when he debated Kamala, he looked like an idiot. But nobody said, oh, he can't make it. He's disoriented or he's losing it. They didn't do it to him, but they sure as hell did it to Biden. And it wasn't just the media; it was the Democrats themselves, and that's what was frustrating. So
that was just so disheartening. I don't fault Joe at all for anything that he did, really. I mean,
no,
I think he got kind of railroaded right out of there.
the
They
only
should
thing
have just left him alone.
I fault Joe Biden for two things. First of all, after a year of doing nothing, he should have fired Merrick Garland. He should have. And had he done that, we probably wouldn't be in this position. Number two, I think he should have stuck to his guns being in his 80s and said, I'm going to go one term and then I'm going to stop. But he thought, well, I can beat Donald Trump, so I'm going to run again. I think that was a poor judgment. You know,
Yeah.
he's a man that just thinks he can handle it. But when you get to a certain age, a lot of things you can't do. Trust me, at 65, there's a lot of things I can't do now that I once did. And you got to be able to accept that and hand it off to somebody who can do it.
Yeah, I can understand that. I think you're right. As he did when he ran, he said, "I'm going to be a one-term president, and then
He
we'll
should
hand
have
it off
stuck
to
to
the
that.
next." Yeah.
He should have stuck to that. Well, John, JD Farmer, I'm going to wrap things up for the Rational Boomer podcast. I want to thank you for coming on and sitting with me, even though this is going to be put out down the road. It's a little harder to do a podcast when we don't know what's going on, really, but uh, it's always great talking to you. You're a kid, you're a child, but you have some interesting perspectives and some ideas, and I know people love to hear it, so I'm glad we got you back on the show.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
And don't hesitate anytime you want to come on. What I'm doing with most of the guests that come on, and I'll send it to you too. I usually just send them my phone number, so you just text me,
Mhm.
say what do you got, and then if whenever I can get you on, I put you on, and it it saves me from missing the emails or whatever. I always get the text, so I'll send that to you. Um,
Yeah, sounds good.
all right, and for those of you listening, thanks for taking the time. I hope you have a great day, and we'll talk to you again tomorrow.